Right, hot on the heels of the news that Sergio Perez has been kicked out of Red Bull of his own volition, we hear today that Liam Lawson is getting the seat next to Max Verstappen. We are going to talk about it because we have some views, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ammar, news came out this morning. We've had a bit of time to digest it. I'm gonna lay it on the line. I don't understand the reasoning. You've got Yuki Tsunoda, who's been in that seat for 4 seasons now. He's beaten everybody that's been put up against him, other than Pierre Gasly. He has outqualified and outraced Liam Lawson in that seat over the 11 races that they have been together. And Red Bull are then going to put a driver up against Max Verstappen, uh, a driver who has demolished every teammate he has been up against since Daniel Ricciardo left that seat. It has been a problem for Red Bull ever since then. So I don't understand why you would take Liam Lawson, 11 races old, stick him in that seat, and hope that he is somehow able to compete with Max Verstappen rather than giving him a bit more time at VCARB when you've got a ready-made driver who has been doing his time, showing what he's made of, and put him in that seat instead. And if he fails, he fails. If he doesn't fail, then great. But if he fails, you've got Liam Lawson now with a bit of experience under his belt to put in that seat. Tell me why they put Liam Lawson in that seat. I don't get it.
Before before I proceed to tell you that, I guess my question to you is, what is the difference between doing that and this? I mean, couldn't you apply the same argument to Liam and say if he fails, then you move him back and you put Yuki in that seat?
But you've done damage to his reputation, right? Like
I mean,
why have we done why are we like
when
the
has that
most
stopped them from doing that? I mean,
yeah no I could yeah
but
yeah
I
yeah
look,
okay but that's why I'm asking the logical question, not the what would Red Bull do. I'm
no, I mean,
asking
but what you're talking is absolutely logical. I 100% agree with you. I mean, I'd like to do Occupy Red Bull to put Yuki in there. So you'll get no argument from me on why it should have happened, but it's pretty evident that it wasn't going to happen, right? I mean, we knew two things at the end of as this season came to a close. Checo is not going to continue, and Liam was going to take that seat. I mean, and you can sort of go back to Singapore tour when Daniel was let go, and so, I mean, I think in a nutshell, Shez, we're trying to make logic out of a very illogical situation. And I watched Christian Horner's interview with Craig Slater on Sky, and I think it's very interesting. I think when you're listening to Christian Horner give his sort of feedback on why Checo was let go after being given that massive contract, and then you add to the fact that he talks about Liam in sort of these platitudes that don't make sense, right? You kind of have to read between the lines. And my read on this is they have made up their mind that they're not going to put a driver in there that will somehow, in some way, rub Max the wrong way. I'm not suggesting that there's beef between Yuki and Max, or there would be, but I think they're just at the point, Chaz, where there's Red Bull are such a one-dimensional team now. Without Max Verstappen, they are nothing. They are nothing. They're probably Aston Martin, really. I mean, that's pretty much what they are. And so whatever they're doing, they're just trying to focus in on Max and try to like I mean, so the second seat in some ways really doesn't even matter, Shez. I mean, and I know he's going to talk about Christian said, "Oh, we should have won the constructors because we won 9 races, yada yada yada." All of that makes sense, but none of it makes sense when you think about what they did with Checo earlier this year, what they did with Daniel in Singapore, and then what they've done now with Checo now, and then of course with putting Liam in there. So I cannot tell you why they're, Shez, for me, just let Yuki go. Let him go. If you're not going to put him in there, why do you have him there? Just let him go, explore other options, let him do a Pierre Gasly kind of thing, and reprise his career somewhere. Because Shez, I'd argue that they've already ruined Yuki's career now.
yeah I mean yeah have they ruined his career? If they get rid of him, where would he go? And that's kind of the problem. I guess that's what you're saying. I do want to put some numbers to this because I have had so many comments. We have had so many comments from you guys saying, "Oh, but Liam is a great driver. He's got massive potential. And so the upside of having Liam in there is great. He's an adaptable driver. He's won DTM against Alex Albon of all people. Um, he won his first Super Formula race. All of these things are great, and that's being used as a reason for why he should be in that seat uh, rather than Yuki Tsunoda. But these are the F1 bits of data that we have, right? So look, this is the one lap data for the 11 races that Yuki and Liam were up against each other, right? So this is a graph looking at the super times, my favorite parameter. You know this, we all know this. Um, and in general, this is the fastest qualifying time that each driver had across the 11 races that they raced against each other. And I'll split this into 2023 at the bottom and 2024 at the top. Any bar that goes towards the left-hand side, Liam is faster. Any towards the right, Yuki is faster. And you can see here that Liam has only outqualified Yuki once at the US Grand Prix this year, which was his first race in 2024, and kudos to him for that. The bigger the bar you see here, the faster that driver was versus their teammate. And some of these bars are humongous. I do need to take a little bit of context into this. The Netherlands in 2023 was Liam's first ever race in Formula One. So, okay, I'll let him have that. And in Las Vegas last year, he didn't, or this year just gone, he didn't set a Q2 lap. So, okay, I'll take that. I'll argue, I'll take the argument that he had difficult circumstances for some of these races. But the overall thing that you can see on that graph is that Yuki outqualified him 10 times to 1. And in the races, it was a fairly similar result. Yuki finished higher up in the driver's standings than Liam did. All of that you have to take into context that Liam is only 11 races into his career. But I want to flip it to the other side. What is it about Yuki that stopped him from getting that seat? Now, again, the theory that's bandied out by uh, people that comment on this site, Red Bull themselves, if you're willing to listen to some of the sources, is that, well, Yuki just doesn't have the temperament, and Liam somehow does. Ammar, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look, I don't know enough about Liam to judge his temperament too, right? And I think let's just be fair to him. We're not in being critical of this move to Red Bull, of Red Bull. We are not being critical of Liam, right? I think that should go without saying. But I'm pretty sure there'll be people who think that we're hating on Liam, and we're not hating on him. I support him just as much as I would support any other up and coming. I mean, if they put Isaac Hadjar, we would have had the same discussion too. The reality with Yuki is, Shez, I think there are a couple of things going on. One, I think, yes, when he did arrive at the sport, he probably got that seat at back then AlphaTauri. I think it was still AlphaTauri back then. He was immature. I mean, we've seen his actions. We've seen sort of him, kind of being belligerent on the radio at times, so maybe a little bit over the line several times, being immature. Yes, that's fine. But he's been labeled a certain way, right? There's that element of it. So I think there's this sort of perception that is stuck with him, even though over the years he's grown to be a lot more mature. And sure, you have your moments, but every driver has those moments too, right? I mean, we cannot expect Formula One drivers to be the most sort of well-behaved, prim and proper people when they're driving at damn near 200 miles an hour. Of course, there's frustration. Of course, they say stuff on the radio. Like that's not a big deal to me. Um, there could be an element of is he the right fit in terms of developing the car? I don't know. I mean, the problem with judging Yuki's performances over the last 4 years as a whole, at AlphaTauri RB, is that the car has sort of not been in places where they've been competitive enough, consistently enough over the 4 years to say, okay, you can kind of take some trend lines and out there. So maybe Red Bull have more data there, and I probably would give them a little bit of a benefit of that because they know a lot more behind the scenes in this regard than we do. obviously. And then I think the third element of this is the Honda thing, right? I mean, I don't think that that can be underestimated. And I always feel like it's couched under other sort of things and it's sort of blown away. But look, I think that the argument is also very simple for Yuki to be in that seat. It could have just been a 1 year deal, and then in 26 everything changes, right? So it could have been that, but they could have simply done that, and they're choosing not to do it. So for me, it's not about, as you alluded to, the sort of the analysis and the data. All of that is there, and I think that's basically a wash at best if you compare the two drivers that you did. All context added and all qualifiers put in there. This has nothing to do with on track. This has everything to do with off track, in my opinion.
Okay, so the off-track stuff is interesting as well, doesn't it? Because is it just about how they're marketed, or is it something else? Because when it comes to the intangible stuff, like the stuff that a driver needs that isn't just about being fast, that's the stuff that has been leveled against Yuki. Okay, like he's not good technically. He's too hot-headed. He's too emotional. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes because,
Max
as
Verstappen.
always, there's always a quote, right? So this is Laurent Mekies, who's the team principal at VCarb. When asked, um, is Yuki ready for that seat? He says it's a fair question. If a driver performs at the level of speed that he's performing right now, it would be a lie to tell you that he's not ready for something even faster. It would be a lie, right? He's put that car in P3 in Brazil, P7 in Vegas on the grid. Who am I to tell you that he's not ready to get a faster car?
Yeah.
In terms of what he has been doing out of the car, yes, he has made a huge improvement as well, both in terms of feedback and in terms of controlling his emotions. I've got one more for you because I think I don't want to bury the lead here. So this is Alan Permain, who was formerly of Team Enstone, but is currently racing director at VCarb. He said, "I was also surprised by his feedback. His English is excellent. All you tend to hear when you're not in the team is his frustrations. I think that gets highlighted a lot. That is an area where if you talk about weaknesses, that is a weakness of his. He knows that he's working on it. But in terms of pace and feedback and short run, long run pace, he's good and he's improved through the year." What else does he have to do? Like
Guys,
that,
can
so he's
I
got pace, he's got feedback, he's working on his emotional control. So if it's not any of those things, and I hear your Honda argument, right? And I definitely have a view on that, which is that every driver that comes out of Japan is backed by an engine manufacturer. They don't get noticed in Europe if it's not for being backed by Honda or
Sure,
Toyota.
sure.
So if you're going to use if you're going to use that as your reason to not give him a seat, well,
Uh,
you're essentially excluding all of Japan,
yes.
right? And then you know what accusations that leads to.
You can put up all of the data between the two drivers, and you can tell me that Liam is has potential, way more than Yuki, but I just don't think the delta is enough to say, wow. I mean, Liam, all due respect to him, isn't Kimi Antonelli coming through. Like, this is not the next phenom that you're saying, oh yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of person we want in there. You need a second driver to Max, someone who knows the Red Bull system, someone who can drive that car well and just score enough points for them to be in the hunt for the constructors, because you're expecting Max to win half of the 24 races each year, give or take. So I don't even understand where the logic is, Shez. But I think we have to also at some point pivot to the macro of this, which is that Red Bull has effectively ruined four, potentially five drivers' its career in what they've done this year.
I think that's the crux of this, right? Is that we're not talking about this necessarily. Like, part of it is an injustice, right? Part of it is me saying that, like, why isn't Yuki getting that seat? But part of it is also a little bit of safeguarding for Liam Lawson. Like, do we want to see him on the scrap heap in the same way that we saw Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon before they were picked up again? You know, they had their reputations and their careers almost destroyed. And Sergio Perez is in that position now. But we're going to throw Liam Lawson with 11 races of F1 experience into the shark tank and expect him to do better.
Shez, This is not, again, we should clarify again that this isn't our argument, our debate, our discussion here has nothing to do with Liam, and this is everything to do with
Correct.
Red Bull. So let's start at the beginning, right? You said in the last video that this was the most unsurprising thing to happen, right? Both the idea of Liam being put in this seat and the idea that Checo would be let gone. But guess who they had at the beginning of the year they could have put in that seat, which basically is the number one driver on your list if you're Red Bull. He has been in your system. He's a race winner. He's done everything. He's as hungry as anyone to prove himself. You had the guy in Carlos Sainz, and Carlos gave voice to it too. He said, Red Bull knew that I was available for months, and they did not come and approach me once. Or maybe they did approach, but I'm paraphrasing here. They did not engage in a meaningful conversation to bring him there. Why? Why? Why renew Checo for 2 more years? 2 years? You couldn't have just done it for 1 year, even if you were going to do it. Okay, yeah, he was on podiums for a couple of those races, but you knew full well where this car was going or not going to go. Like you have the access to all of the. So it is complete BS from Christian Horner. And look, you cannot put aside what happened to Red Bull at the beginning of the year. That they won the drivers' championship is a testament to Max. It really is. It has very little to do with Red Bull and it has more to do with Max. I think 90-10 is this is all about Max. Okay. But they've had these issues behind the scenes that I think plays a role into what happened today too with the announcement too, because there is a power struggle. And you know what? By the way, Helmut Marko, I do not want to hear from you anymore. I just do not. Like now, all of a sudden, you give praising remarks to Yuki. You had this whole time to put him in that seat. What are you doing? I don't understand what they're doing. They talk out of both sides. They have different people deliberately talk different things so the rest of us kind of get lost. This is all smoke and mirrors, man. This is all that it is. And they had made up their mind. They were going to put Liam in there. I mean, we knew this. Let's go back to Daniel Ricciardo too. Same thing too. Why are you doing these things? It makes no sense from a racing perspective. So again, I keep coming back to this has stuff to do with all kinds of things that you and I and most of us have no access to on what's happening behind the scenes. We can only speculate, but it is clear that there is dysfunction behind the scenes. And there's only one guy saving Red Bull this year. Without Max, they're nothing. And so, in some ways, this seat can be a rolling carousel for the next year. I'm 100% with you, Shez. If Liam has a bad start, let's just give it 5, 6 races and let's just see where he stacks up because next year the competition is much more fierce than it is this year. Ferrari have arguably the best lineup, at least on paper. McLaren have a formidable lineup. Mercedes are going to be in the mix, at least based on the way they ended this season. And so they're going to be there, and Max is going to do what Max does. So you have 7 drivers over there already that have something to say about. Aston Martin at some point could pull up right there, especially if Newey gets in there at some point. Maybe not early in the season, but at least towards the middle of the season, there's a chance. You can't put all of these. So I don't understand why, if you're Red Bull and if you're Christian Horner, you're passively aggressively saying that we could have won the constructor championship. Don't think I did hear that, Christian Horner. You did that. You did that on purpose. Giving him Checo that passive aggressive sort of feedback in that interview was not great. He did that. So if you really were committed to the constructor championship, you would have signed Carlos first, Yuki second. You can kind of go down that order right there. They did not want to do that, Shez. And in the process, they have ruined potentially altered and definitely ruined a couple of those careers right there. Because those guys, if Liam fails here, he is not going to get a chance to be with the championship fighting team. He's just not. He's going to have to be Pierre. He's going to have to be Alex somewhere towards the bottom of the grid. He's not going to have a chance to come back.
And therein, Ammar, lies the rub. I cannot disagree with you on any of those points, Ammar. That was a great little way to end that. On that note, as usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one and we will reply to as many as we possibly can. We will see you guys in the next one.